Today, I'm going to paint Samson the Dwarf from Zombicide in under 90 minutes.
Then the entirety of the cosmos is accessible through each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. So today, I'll be painting Samson the Dwarf from the Zombicide Black Plague series or Green Horde series. No matter what you're playing, it's still the same guy, but this guy is the ultimate survival version of him. In today's video, I'll also be discussing the differences between silver versus iron or steel. So these two metals, while appearing grey in color, they have different properties to them. So I'm going to show you guys a small simple trick of how you can portray this small little difference on the armors right here. So if you're ready, let us begin. Alright, welcome back to another 90-minute painting challenge. Today we'll be painting Samson the Dwarf from Zombicide Black Plague. Okay, the concept for today's painting, I want to try to paint everything together rather than paint component by component. Alright, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but we're going to give it a try. So as per normal, I'm starting with my concept. I'm starting off with an orange OSL from the bottom left hand corner as per the miniatures that I've painted. This is using the same concept that I'm doing with Silas, so that when all the miniatures are put together, they have a coherent theme going on. The colors used are Chimera Orange and Chimera Black. In this video, what I want you guys to be looking at is the concept of readability. I realized the concept of readability is really important in this miniature because the miniature is a dwarf, so it doesn't immediately have a humanoid form when looking from the front. It looks kind of strange because there's a huge round lump in the middle and there's a hammer at the back. So throughout the entire video when I'm painting the miniature, I'll be adding in some tips and tricks of how I make the miniature a lot more readable, make the volumes and shapes a lot more readable, and hence towards the final product. So readability is really important for miniature painting because readability speaks about how we can perceive the miniature, although being very small, how we can help the viewer perceive form, shapes, to allow the viewer to tell which part is what. So things that can help with the readability of the miniature would be the shadows, would be how you place the highlights, and the shapes. Right now I'm just doing the base coat, so you probably can't see much, but I'm limiting myself to use very limited colors for this. So today I'm gonna paint Samson using steel iron armor rather than a silver armor which I've used for Silas. There are very subtle differences between steel and iron. So these are some of the things that I've observed and learned during this painting process today. So I realized that steel, it has steel and iron tends to have a warmer mid-tone compared to silver, which is a lot more reflective than steel, hence it has a more bluish tint to it. Okay, so this initial base color that I'm doing is a highlight color which I've mixed raw umber with fuel blue. I'm also gonna paint his hair differently. I'm gonna give his hair a more cool grey to contrast against the warm steel and iron look. Okay? So anyway, back to the main topic about listening in for this entire time lapse. I'm gonna talk about readability. As you guys can see right now, there are a few colors that are being used in the entire miniature, but on the occasion where you see the miniature from the front main view, it's not immediately very readable because all the miniature is currently in the same value and of similar color, so the viewer is not able to actively discern which component is what. This is increasingly visible when you look at the face of Samson. The face now is currently black, and because the human eye is able to easily identify human faces, you can't really tell that it's a face right now because the blue is very sloppily painted on, and the rest of the armor isn't very well defined yet. But right now, one thing that I would recommend to all painters about readability would be to place the highlights carefully and properly. So as you guys can see, I'm gradually adding few blue into this silver armor, but I'm not too concerned about the definition yet because I know that this stage is going to be pretty messy. Alright? So the difference between steel and how I painted silver is, instead of directly adding in ivory into the mix, what I've added in Joe Sonia skin tone into the iron mix, because this iron tends to have iron can rust, and because it rusts, it might have a little bit of red coloration to it. So that's why I'm adding in this skin tone to create this highlight. So it's the next color. It's just a difference of one color in between ivory, which gives it a more iron and metallic look. Okay. So back to the overarching theme of readability, as you guys can see, when I'm placing more and more highlights, you start to discern that how the arm is put in front of his beard, how the extended arm with the hammer behind is seen, and how the overall miniature interacts with the background. I start to go into more detail. I start to identify the scale mail which he has on his chest and his arms. And then gradually these components start to identify as different parts rather than the same whole chunk of silver or iron which Samson is wearing. So as you guys can see, what I'm doing right now is, as I'm gradually highlighting the areas, these areas are gradually being more refined rather than, if you notice how the brush strokes work at the start, they were all very chunky, just thrown onto the miniature. Right now I'm using a smaller brush, paying particular attention to the shape of the highlights. So as you guys can see, the shape of the highlights is very important to me. I like to make sure that the light gathers at the edges, which helps with the readability, and I want to make sure that while it gathers towards the edges, it slowly fades towards the middle. Okay. So now we are approaching the 1 hour mark into the challenge. This is currently sped up at 4 times speed. Okay, now looking at this miniature, you can start to see that the face and the readability of this miniature is starting to show, because now you can discern that he has an arm across his beard, you can discern what is a beard, you can discern his hair and his face. But previously, before that, you couldn't. So what changed during this period? So during this period of painting, the hair, face and hand are all base coated a lot more neatly,
And what you can see is that the arm has already been contoured, and then you can see that the material of the arm is different from the material of the beard and the face, so that gives part separation. One key component about readability is part separation, and then to me, readability is all about allowing the viewer to just treat the viewer as if they don't know anything about the law, so that when he or she sees the miniature, you can he's able to discern, oh, this is a piece of metal which is different from the beard. The viewer wouldn't be able to know that dwarves have beards, dwarves are shorter, etc., etc. So you just got to treat the viewer as an outsider who doesn't know the law, so that these individual components speak to the viewer rather than allowing the viewer some room of interpretation, which allows the miniature to be a bit less readable. So right now what I'm doing, I'm starting to base coat the gold areas using a mix of red oxide with Chimera Black. So the red oxide and Chimera Black with all the other recipes, if you want to see how I paint this realistic non-metallic metal gold, you can check out this video over here on the top right hand corner. The links will also be in the show notes of how I painted this non-metallic metal, okay? Non-metallic metal gold. As you guys can see, I have not fully highlighted the iron armor that Samson is wearing. I'm moving back and forth between the gold and the silver to make sure that the entire piece is balanced. Because one item I realized about Silas is that when I'm painting Silas, I realized I spent a lot of time on the NMM silver and not enough time on the cloak. So what resulted in that is that the cloak looked a little bit less defined than it looked the values look a little bit wrong to me, and it's not as balanced. So that's why my approach to Samson today would be slightly different, where I try to work on all the components simultaneously to make sure that the entire miniature is well balanced. The downside to working on the miniature simultaneously is that I have to keep switching colors, and by switching colors, it wastes some time, and because this is a time 90-minute challenge, I cannot go into the definitions that I'm interested in. So right here you can see I'm starting to balance off the orange OSL from the bottom left hand corner. So I'm placing orange OSL on the bottom left hand corner, as well as starting to highlight the gold. So the gold color tends to be, the first highlight of the gold tends to be quite similar to the orange OSL, because I'm using yellow oxide, red oxide as a mix, and yellow plus red, as we all know, will become some degree of orange. Okay, so that's why it looks kind of similar now, but you will be done in a different step. Alright, so now we are closing the halfway mark. As you guys can see, the miniature is gradually becoming a little bit more readable. Why I say more readable is because every single detail that I'm adding into the miniature now lends to the readability about the miniature, because the golden bands hint towards that these braces are circular in nature. The highlights on the braces also hints that these are circular in nature, and hence it forms a coherent picture that every single highlight and shape are done coherently and hence more readable. Alright, as you guys can see, I think for me the word of this entire video, other than readability, is for coherency. Every single highlight and shape needs to speak the same word. Okay? Needs to speak the same direction. So in my mind is that there is a normal top-down lighting, sort of like a spotlight from the top, a diffuse spotlight, but then on the bottom left-hand side there will be an orange field light which symbolizes that they are currently saving a village which is being burned down by zombies and all that chaos that ensues. So I want to be speaking the same tone for the entire miniature. So when I'm looking at the hammer, I'm considering how the orange OSL on the bottom is doing and how the top light is also doing. So right now I'm sticking to the warm highlights. I'm using white and cool yellow as the highlights for the iron on Samson's braces, gloves, gauntlet, and all the other stuff. So this is very different from how I've done Silas, because Silas I've done using a cooler highlight, and the nature of his armor is a lot more shiny in comparison to this Samson's armor. So now with readability, the arm clearly stands off from the face and the beard. Currently, right now, what's not readable, in my opinion, would be the hair and the beard, because these are all currently just base coated in one color, and we can't really tell how the form and shape of the beard are. This will be tackled towards the end of the video. But right now, with the lack of time, I'm currently very focused on creating a believable non-metallic metal look so that the entire miniature is able to stand out on the tabletop. So the next part about readability is about how you tell the form and shapes of the components. This is where Games Workshop really particularly stands out by their style, because they're miniature companies, they each highlight everything so that you can look at the details, and this is what I'm doing exactly now. I'm each highlighting the key details so that you are able to identify that the hammer actually has some ridges which is carved into the hammer. I'm actually slowly highlighting the individual ridges on the shoe, on the boot rather, to show that the boot is done in a scale manner rather than being one piece of metal on its own. Okay, so right now I'm gonna work on the leather. So the leather is gonna speak the same story. The leather is made using red oxide and a little bit of camo beige, German camo beige. But what this leather lends to this miniature is that there's gonna be just that little bit more readability and material separation, because the leather, how the chainmail is linked to his armor plates is that the chainmails are being surrounded by leather, and having this around the chainmail allows the reader to have a look and know that there's a flap of chainmail over his legs. Therefore, his legs are not entirely visible due to being obscured by the chainmail. And right now, I remember 20 minutes into the challenge, I am really having a lack of time because I need to start to increase the readability of the hair and the beard. I cannot allow the hair and the beard to look as one lump, and thus right now I'm creating the highlights. So I choose to make a larger highlight for the head, but then I selectively highlighted the beard, because they are made of the same material, they are made of hair, but the head is more exposed to the atmosphere from the top light. So the highlight of the head needs to be larger than the beard. And his braids at the back are individually highlighted. Okay? Because of the blue undercoating, it gives a little bit more part separation from the beard to the armor. Okay, so gradually right now I'm placing more and more highlights just by gradually adding more ivory to the mix. And then I'm going to start to redefine and do some part separation between the face and the hairs. So what I did just now is I mixed raw umber with red oxide in a rather messy fashion to place the shadows, and then I'm going to clean up the sides so that a little bit of this dark color is showing through between the beard and the face. So this allows the viewer to understand that there's a separation between the two materials. Okay, and I'm going to start cleaning up also. And because it's a face, the human mind is just hardwired to identify silhouettes of humans and faces. So what I'm doing right now is I'm playing with how the human mind identifies faces by highlighting the key areas: the nose, the cheeks, the brows, and the foreheads. Okay, for the nose and cheeks, I'm adding in a little bit of Chimera red to show that there's a lot more blood vessels in there. And eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix red oxide with red with olive green to create sort of like a glaze and a wash to glaze into the shadows of the cheeks and the nose to give hints that these shadow areas are a lot more red than they are supposed to be. Right now I'm trying to paint the eyes. I distinctly remember having a lot of problem painting the eyes. So what I did is I just dabbed a huge lump of skin tone, and eventually I just used raw umber to clean up the shapes, which is a lot easier because now I'm reducing rather than adding. So at this stage, I'm continuously pushing the saturation of the red for the cheeks and the nose. And reinforcing the shapes and pushing in the orange light sauce coming from the bottom left. I'm also placing some highlights in a neat fashion so that the entire miniature is visible and more readable. So at this stage, I think I'm about done with the miniature already. I'll show you guys the miniature soon. Just remember to paint in the base so that you can complete the entire illusion. And I hope you enjoyed the entire talk about readability and watching me paint Samson within 90 minutes.
So I hope you found this video tutorial useful of how to separate iron and steel while painting miniatures. If you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like, hit the bell notification icon so you know when we post the next videos. Alright, so we post videos every Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturdays. But at the rate of us producing videos right now, there are chances that you will see us on odd days such as Sundays, Tuesdays, so on and so forth. Alright, so I hope you don't miss another video from us. Okay, so if you really want to support the channel further, if you can afford it, please head on to our Patreon and become a $2 Patreon right now. So this $2 Patreon, you get extended plays, and for the higher tiers, you guys get more in-depth stuff and exclusive content so that we all get to become better painters together. Okay, I hope to create this better community so that we all get to improve and become better painters. Alright, I hope to see you in the next 90-minute video. See you.